Okay. So today's topic, आवाज येत आहे?
हो मॅम.
Yes, ma'am.
Today's topic is nomenclature of dentition. Okay. So now at the end of this lecture, you should be able to know what is the definition, what is the terminology related to the tooth structure and to the dental caries and the various tooth numbering systems. But the tooth numbering systems झालंय तुमचं, but we'll again see that in detail. Okay. So basically these are the learning objectives of the lecture. You should know all these things. They are asked, all this is asked in the Viva, very routinely asked. So you have to know this, okay? जरी तुम्हाला basic वाटलं तरी पण it is very essential. Now, what do you first of all will say? What is the meaning of the term nomenclature? Now, nomenclature means it is a set of terms which is used by individual in the same profession, which helps them to understand. Means, what do you mean? That as a dentist, you have certain terms or certain words which are used only by dentists. So when you speak about that, when you use that term, all dentists will be able to understand what you are referring to. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So now, if you see the various tooth surfaces, you know the various surfaces of the tooth. They are mesial, distal, labial, buccal, facial, lingual, incisal, occlusal, and cervical. Now, all these surfaces you are well versed with. You have been done. You have passed your first year. You have done the teeth carving. So all this has been is very well known to you. Okay. So now coming to the next term, what is we have the anatomical tooth crown and we have the clinical tooth crown. Now can you see the picture down? Okay. Now the anatomical tooth crown means the portion of the tooth which is covered with the enamel. So the whole crown which is covered with enamel is referred to as the anatomical tooth crown. And then you have the next term, that is clinical tooth crown. So the portion of the tooth which is exposed in the oral cavity. So it can be beyond the anatomical tooth crown or it can be less than that. So whatever is visible in the oral cavity is called as the clinical tooth crown. So if you observe the diagram, it is very, very explanatory, self-explanatory. Then we have certain terms which are related to the dental caries. So the first thing is the primary caries. What do you mean by primary? As the term implies, primary meaning it is the original lesion in the tooth, the first lesion which occurs in the tooth. Then you have the secondary caries. Now, secondary caries is it is also called as the recurrent caries, and it means a subsequent attack of caries on the tooth, which has already been restored. Meaning what? You have already excavated the primary caries, you've given a restoration, and there is again development of secondary or recurrent caries. Now, why does this occur? If the interface between your restoration and the tooth is not properly sealed, it may lead to micro leakage, which in turn may lead to secondary caries. When we come to the term incipient caries, now incipient caries means it is a very early carious lesion and it is a reversible caries. Reversible meaning it can be reversed by making use of certain mineralization agents, or even if you follow the proper oral hygiene procedures also, this caries process can be reversed. Next, you move on to the advanced caries. Now, in advanced caries, it is basically an irreversible type of caries. As you can see, the tooth has been cavitated. That is, a cavity is formed in the enamel or the dentine. In this case, remineralization is not possible. What you have to do is you have to excavate the caries either by the spoon excavator or by the drilling machine. That is or by the drilling machine, and you have to restore it properly by using a suitable restorative material. Next term used is the pit and fissure caries. Now pits and fissures, as you know, how are they developed? That is, they are formed because there is imperfect union of the enamel lobes during the developmental stage of the tooth. And these areas, the pits and fissures, which are seen on the mainly on the posterior teeth, are the areas which are the common sites for food entrapment, plaque formation, and subsequently development of dental caries. So these areas are the most highly prone for development of dental caries. Then we have the term root surface caries. Now, as the term implies, root surface meaning the caries which is occurring on the surface of the root. So normally the root surface is covered with the periodontium, but as with age, what happens is there can be gingival recession and the root surface gets exposed to the oral cavity. So in that case, you have caries which are occurring on the surface of the tooth. Now since it occurs usually seen in old age, it is also called as senile caries, and this is a more rapidly spreading. It spreads very rapidly. So now with the life expectancy increased among the population, the more cases of senile caries or root surface caries are being seen in the clinical practice. Then you have the terms acute caries and chronic caries. Now, acute again, as the term implies, it is a rapid onset of caries, and the caries here onset is rapid and the spread also is rapid. Here it is the caries is how can you see it clinically? It is light yellow in color. It has a soft texture and it is highly infectious. So rapid spread, light yellow in color, and highly infectious. The examples of acute caries are nursing bottle caries, or you can have in cases of xerostomia, where usually seen in patients who are undergoing treatment for chemotherapy, or taking chemotherapy, that is undergoing treatment for any kind of cancer. So in those cases, what happens is, because of xerostomia, the term xerostomia, that is, xerostomia means less salivary flow. Okay, so in that case, because the saliva flow is less, the uh, self-cleansing action of saliva is lost and the exposed tooth surfaces are highly prone to development of caries. So nursing bottle caries and caries seen in xerostomic patients are two examples of acute caries. Then next you move on to the chronic caries. Now as you see, if you differentiate between the two, chronic caries again, it has a slower onset and is less or a slower spread. Now this is hard in consistency and the color of the carious lesions is dark brown to black in color. Now they can be arrested caries or you have sclerotic caries, that is arrested caries. We'll see that in detail when we see dental caries. Okay, so now basically here the difference is it has a slow onset and it is hard in consistency. Then forward caries and backward caries. Now as the term says, forward caries and backward caries. Now forward meaning starts from the enamel pit or the fissure and it spreads to the enamel. Okay. Now in forward caries, what happens is the carious cone is larger in the enamel and as compared to the cone in dentium. So the caries starts from the enamel pit or the fissure and then it progresses through the enamel, reaches the D junction and then to the dentium. So if you see the picture, the carious cone or the size of the caries in enamel is more than that in the dentine, or they can be of the same size. The next is you have the backward caries. Now here caries here, what happens, it starts from the enamel, reaches the D junction and it spreads backward, that is it spreads more in the dentine. So if you see the size of the caries in the enamel, it will be less as compared to the size of the carious lesion in the dentine. So that is why, if you can see the picture, it is starting from the enamel, going, reaching the DE junction, and then spreading laterally along in the dentine. So in this case, what happens is the carious cone is, or the size of the carious lesion is more in the dentine than in the enamel. So clinically, if you observe this, you will observe this only as a pit. But when you actually start with the cavity preparation, you will realize that the size of the lesion is quite broader or wide as you reach the dentine. So that is why, since it spreads backwards, it is called as the backward caries. Then we have the residual caries. Now, as the term residual caries, residual meaning some kind of residue which is left behind. Now, this caries can be left behind in the cavity after cavity preparation or tooth preparation, and this can be done either accidentally or intentionally by the operator. Now, accidentally meaning inadvertent means you, if it is especially in the proximal area, you are not able to visualize properly, or if it is the caries is below the level of the gingiva. What happens is sometimes you may accidentally leave the caries in the prepared cavity, or it can be intentional. Intentional meaning, if the carious lesion is very deep and you think it is very deep and close to the pulp, and if you think removing all the caries can result in pulp exposure, so you can actually leave this caries and go for the restoration. Now, which caries intentionally the operator is leaving this caries because they're giving a chance for remineralization. Now, how do you decide how much which caries you leave and in the prepared cavity? So this has to be determined by tactile sensation. So, tactile sensation, you have to use your probe to determine the consistency of the caries. And if you feel the caries is soft, it is definitely you have to remove it. But if you think the remaining caries has a hard or a firm sensation or a firm feeling, it is firm to the tactile sensation, then you can leave the caries, restore it properly, and wait and observe the tooth. So this is so residual caries can be left intentionally basically when you when the carious lesion is very close to the pulp and any further excavation can lead to pulp exposure. Then these are the defects which we have seen related to the teeth because of dental caries. Now there are certain other defects in the teeth which which are not related to the development of caries. So these are the various terms: adhesion, abrasion, erosion, abfraction, fracture, and enamel hyperplasia. So now, what is this? We'll see each of this term in detail. Now, the first term is adhesion, that is a physiological wear of the tooth. This physiological wear can occur both occlusally and proximally. So now what do you mean by the term physiological? That is which occurs with age. Okay. So this is a normal procedure, normal aging procedure. So as you age, there are chances that the tooth will wear off. It will occur, and this wearing will occur on the occlusal surfaces as well as on the proximal surface. So this is called as adhesion. As you can see in the picture, the incisal edges of the teeth are worn off, and proximally also it may wear, leading to spacing between the teeth. But this is a normal aging procedure. Then you have abrasion. Now in abrasion, there is loss of the tooth structure, if you can see, but this is not mechanical wear. It is not because of the forces of mastication. It is usually if you are using a toothbrush and not you using a toothbrush vigorously, or some people have the habit of brushing using vigorous force, strong force while brushing their teeth. So in that case, you can see loss of the tooth structure. So this is called as abrasion, as you can see in the picture of the picture which you can see in the oral cavity. You have to distinguish this between erosion. We'll see what is erosion first. Now here again, if you can see, there is loss of the tooth structure. Erosion again is a loss of the tooth structure. It can be cervically or it can be on the surface of the teeth. Now here you have to see that in erosion there is loss of the tooth structure because of chemicals such as acids. Now which acids are present in the oral cavity? So that especially if you're taking in a lot of acidic food, you have those cold drinks and all that. So if you're taking in those a lot of acidic food stuff, or if some people or some patients do have complaint of hyperacidity. So the acids from the stomach regurgitate into the oral cavity, and if this is occurring over a long period of time, it can result in dissolution of the tooth structure. So again, this is termed as erosion, but it is because of chemical. So you have to differentiate between the abrasion and erosion. So the causative factor is going to determine what type of lesion you see. Next is abfraction. Now, what is abfraction? Here you can see wedge-shaped defects which are seen on the tooth surface. Now, where are they seen? In the cervical region of the tooth. Now, what is the reason? The reason is there is a long-term stress on the particular tooth. Now, why? What kind of stress is there? That is especially occlusal stresses, especially if the teeth are malpositioned, if there is any malocclusion. In that case, the chances are that a certain teeth will be exposed to a lot of stress, a lot of force, and this will result in some wedge-shaped defects in the cervical portion of the tooth. So the treatment for this is again you have to correct the occlusal forces or the abnormal occlusal forces which are acting on the tooth. Now fracture. Now what do you mean by the term fracture? So any break, if any tooth has a break in the continuity. So this you can see in the picture, the tooth has broken, the crown has broken. This is termed as fracture of the tooth. Now there can be various reasons for the fracture. It can be because of contact sports. It can be because of an accident, that is, or any kind of trauma to the tooth. So this will result in fracture of the tooth. Now, enamel hypoplasia. Now, this enamel hypoplasia is, what do you mean by enamel hypoplasia? In this, there is defective formation of the enamel. Now, why is the formation, it can be defective. So, there are a number of reasons. The first is it can be resulting because of some kind of nutritional deficiencies during the formative stage. That is, it can be deficiency vitamin A, C, D, or it can be as a result of fluorosis. Fluorosis meaning there is excess of fluoride, especially in the drinking water, or it depends on the area where you live. And or there can be any other congenital diseases which may result in defective formation. And so the picture you get is of discolored enamel. Okay? So you have to rule out the various causes and find out what is the reason for the enamel hypoplasia. Now the next terms we are commonly using are grooves and fossa. That is, again, these grooves and fossa are got during during the developmental stage of the tooth. The enamel lobes unite completely, but you have some areas you have which are you have they are called as the grooves or the fossa which are present on the tooth, but these are shallow. These areas are shallow and they can be easily cleaned by your regular brushing techniques or using of your mouthwash. That is, oral hygiene procedures can be used directly. oral hygiene procedures can be used just for cleaning the area, and so these are actually self-cleansing areas. But then there are certain pits and fissures. The pits and fissures are areas, again, these are areas of incomplete union. Again, here what you see is the pits and fissures are very sharp and deep, and these areas cannot be easily cleaned. So what happens is these are susceptible to susceptible to plaque accumulation, and which can plaque accumulation and food entrapment, which can lead to development of caries. Then there's another term, enameloplasty, which is used commonly. Now, what do you mean by the term enameloplasty? Now, see, if you see in the first picture, you have a deep fissure. So now in this deep fissure, you can see it is very difficult to clean with your regular brushing technique. So what you need to do is, you just, with the help of a fissure, you convert this with the help of a word. You can just convert this deep fissure into a smooth saucer shaped surface. So if you can see in the second picture, the deep fissure has been modified into a shallow fissure, into a shallow saucer shaped surface. Now this surface can be easily cleaned, and it is also self-cleansing. So this procedure is used wherever you can see deep fissures, pits and fissures present in the oral cavity. So if you just round it off and you make a smooth surface, it becomes self-cleansing, which can be easily cleansed, and thereby preventing the development of dental caries. So now these are the various defects. So far we have seen the various defects in the tooth. Um, and the terms or the nomenclature associated with that. Now we move on to the next part, that is tooth preparation or cavity preparation. So now you have prepared cavities in the plaster models. All of you have prepared cavities in the plaster models. So now the term cavity preparation is no longer used, but what is used frequently is the tooth preparation. The term tooth preparation is used. So now tooth preparation, what is the meaning of this? It is a mechanical alteration of a defective, injured or diseased tooth. So meaning you have a tooth defective, that is which is any tooth which is defective either by birth or by some kind of an accident, or if there is any injury to the tooth, that is, and as we have seen the case of a fractured tooth, or any type of blow to the tooth, or if there is any disease of the tooth. That is, the disease can be, as we have seen, it can be because of dental caries or because of the non-carious lesions. So all these, any kind of these defective tooth, defects present in the tooth, you have to you have to modify this. How do you modify this, or how do you alter this? With the help of the, that is mechanical alteration, that is by making use of the mechanical tools available with us, that is the hand pieces, that is the micromotor or the aerogen hand pieces are used. So you're using a mechanical mean to alter this surface of the tooth. And how do you alter it? You alter it in such a way that the tooth is best modified to receive a restorative material. Now, only filling the tooth is not important. Only restoring it is not important, but the tooth should establish or should be in a healthy state with the adjoining adjoining teeth and the soft tissues present in the oral cavity, and at the same time it should also serve the purpose of aesthetics. Okay? So that is the cosmetic purpose. So the tooth has to serve as a functional unit after receiving the restoration. So this is the definition of tooth preparation. That is basically modification of the tooth to receive the restorative material which will restore the form, function and aesthetics of the tooth. So moving on, we have how do you classify tooth preparation? So, or how do you classify cavities? So if you have one way of classifying the cavities is you can have either simple, compound or complex cavities. Now as the term implies, simple meaning only one surface of the tooth is involved. Compound meaning two surfaces of the tooth are involved. And complex meaning more than two surfaces involved. So can you give me an example of simple? Um, See, simple is only a single surface cavity. So the examples of this is you can have a cavity either only on the mesial, distal, occlusal, facial or lingual surface or the incisal surface. So any one surface involved with the tooth, it becomes a simple cavity. The compound is when two surfaces are involved. So now you have prepared the compound cavities in your preclinical postings, if you can recollect. That is, we have two surface involvement is seen in, you may have a proximal surface and occlusal surface involvement, or incisal and proximal surface involved in the anterior. So whenever two surfaces are involved, it becomes a compound cavity. Now complex is when more than two surfaces are involved. Okay, so complexes again, when more, the example of this is, example of complex is you have an mesio, occluso and distal. That is where two proximal surfaces and the occlusal surfaces involved. So that again becomes a complex cavity because it is more than two surfaces. Now, you prepared the cavity, all of you, and you know the various walls. You have certain walls of cavity walls or the tooth preparation walls which are present. Now, each wall will take the name of the surface which it faces. So, supposing you have a cavity wall which is facing um, on the facing the mesial surface of the tooth, it is called as the mesial wall. Facial surface, facial wall. Lingual surface, lingual wall. And distal surface will be the distal wall. So now, internal walls, you also have something which is called as internal walls and external walls. Now, as you know, as the term implies, internal meaning a wall which is present, which lies within your cavity, and it does not communicate with the external surface of the tooth. So there are two examples of the internal walls, the pulpal floor and the axial wall. Now, all of you know the pulpal floor, which is lies in the depth of your cavity. That is, the base of your cavity is called as the pulpal floor. This is seen in the class 1 cavities, single surface cavities. But now, and there is another internal wall, that is the axial wall. Now the axial wall, the difference between these two walls is that axial wall is parallel to the long axis of the tooth and pulpal wall or pulpal floor is perpendicular to the long axis of the tooth. So any internal cavity, any internal wall, when you observe the internal walls of the cavity, you have to determine whether that wall is parallel or perpendicular to the long axis of the tooth, and then accordingly you will call it as axial wall or the pulpal wall. Now moving on to the external walls. So the external walls are those walls of the cavity which communicate with the external surface of the tooth. So you can have these distal, mesial, facial or the lingual walls. So all these walls are communicating with the external surface of the tooth, therefore they are called as the external walls. Now floor, as we have seen, the pulpal floor, or it is the seat of the cavity, or you can have the gingival floor. If you have a class 2 cavity, you can have the gingival floor. The gingival floor is the floor um, which is present on the proximal side and it is close facing towards the gingiva. Then you have the term enamel wall. So any wall of your prepared cavity which lies only in the enamel is called as the enamel wall. And if the wall of the prepared cavity lies in the dentine, it is called as the dentinal wall. Now, the next terms used are the line angles. All of you know since we've been working in the technique classes. So now a line angle is where two surfaces join along a line. Two surfaces of different orientation join along a line. So if you have, that is junction between two surfaces. So if you have the mesial wall and the facial wall. So the junction between the two will be the mesofacial line angle. So whenever two surfaces meet, they will always meet along the line, and the name of that line angle will be the names of the two surfaces which join to form that line angle. So if it is mesial wall and facial wall, it can be called as the mesiofacial or the faciomesial. So you can call it either ways. So similarly, it follows for all the surfaces in your prepared cavity. Then you have an internal line angle and again a external line angle. So as the term implies, internal line angle meaning the line angle whose apex points into the tooth. Means again what it means, it does not come to the external surface of the tooth. Then you have the external line angle whose apex points towards the external surface or it communicates with the external surface of the tooth. So if you see the adjoining picture, which you can the internal line angles will be the cavity, the line angles which are present at the base of your cavity. So if you can see the junction of the pulpal wall and the maybe the mesial, the distal, facial or the lingual walls. So any either of the walls. So you can have the faciopulpal, the linguopulpal, mesiopulpal, or the distopulpal. So all these line angles, if you can see, are the internal. That is, they are lying in the base and of the cavity and not communicating with the external surface of the tooth. On the other hand, the external line angle, all the vertical line angles, that is the junction between the mesial, facial, distal, and the lingual walls. And if you take, for example, the class 1 cavity. So all these line angles are communicating with the external surface or the apex is pointing towards the external surface. Therefore, it is called as the external line angle. Now moving on, we have the point angle. So just as we have seen a line angle junction of two surfaces, point angle is a junction of three planar surfaces. When three surfaces join, they always meet at a point and that junction is called as the point angle. And how do you name this point angle? Again, the name of the point angle will be derived from all the three surfaces which join to form the point angle. So then moving on, we have the cavo-surface angle. Now, the cavo-surface angle is that angle which is formed by the external surface of the tooth and the prepared wall of your cavity. So, if you can see in the adjoining figure, it is the junction. If you have the vertical wall, the straight rod is representing the vertical wall of the cavity, and you have the oblique one which is facing the oblique rod which is showing the external surface of the tooth. So the angle formed between the two is called as the cavo-surface angle. Okay, and then you have the cavo-surface margin. The cavo-surface margin is nothing but the junction of the external surface of the tooth and the prepared wall of the cavity. Now, why is this cavo-surface margin important? Because this cavo-surface margin is important because depending on the type of restorative material you are using, you will have different designs for the cavo-surface margin. Now, coming to the classification of the teeth, there is teeth can be classified there's a classification given by Dr. G.V. Black. He's classified tooth preparation into 5 types, and later on there was a modification and class 6 was added to it. So now let us see, this is from class 1 to 5 and class 6 which was added later on. Let us see what this is in detail. So now the class 1 cavity, what is a class 1 cavity? Basically they are pit and fissure cavities which are present on the occlusal surface of all the posterior teeth. Posterior teeth meaning the premolars and the molars. Then it has a second part to it, which means all the restorations which are present on the occlusal two-third of the facial and lingual surface of only the molars. Okay, so if you see the molars and you observe the facial or the lingual surface of the molars, you can see there is a groove running between the cusp. So any restoration which is carried out in this portion of the tooth is termed is a part of the class 1 cavity. Then again you have restorations which are present on the lingual surface of the maxillary incisors. So that is also included in a class 1 cavity. So class 1, if you are asked the class 1 cavity, you have to specify all the 3 parts of the class 1 cavity. To repeat, they are basically pits and fissure restorations on posterior surface of the teeth, then restoration on occlusal two-third of the facial and lingual surface of the molars, and restoration on lingual surface of the maxillary incisors. Coming to the class 2 cavity, it is a restoration which is basically present on the posterior surface of the teeth. That is, it is the mesio-occlusal or the disto-occlusal surface. Okay, so this is called as the class 2 cavity. Then you have the class 3 cavity. This class basically involves restorations which are carried out on the proximal surface of the anterior teeth. Proximal surface of the anterior teeth, but here which do not involve the incisal angle. Okay. So if you can, the diagram which you can see, the anterior teeth, only the proximal surface of the anterior teeth. Now class 4 cavity is again a restoration which is carried out on the proximal surface of the anterior teeth, but it is involving the incisal angle. So the difference between the two types of class 3 and 4 is basically involvement of the incisal angle. Then the next class includes the class 5, that is a restoration which is present in the gingival third of all the surfaces of all teeth. So this is important. Any cavity or any restoration which is carried out in the gingival third of all surfaces and of all teeth is called as the class 5 cavity. Now the third, then there was this classification, basic classification was modified later on to include the class 6 cavity. So now what is a class 6 cavity? So any cavity or any restoration which occurs on the incisal edge of the anterior teeth or on the occlusal cusp height of the posterior teeth falls in this category. Since this was not involved in any of the other classes, the class 6 was specially added to include this group of cavities. So now coming to the last part of this topic, that is the tooth numbering system. Now the tooth numbering systems, basically you have the universal system which is given by the ADA in 1968. Then you have the Zsigmondy-Palmer system and the FDI system. Now the most popularly used today is the FDI system. Let us see what are the 3 tooth numbering systems. I think you already have an idea about this, but let us see this again. So the universal system, here in the universal system you have the each tooth has a specific number. So now if you come to the permanent dentition, so you have the each tooth, that is you start from the maxillary right quadrant, and the posterior most tooth, that is the maxillary upper maxillary right third molar, will be labeled as tooth number 1, and then you move anteriorly, you come to the central incisor. Again, this is the upper maxillary right central incisor, will be tooth number 8. You move to the left side, so the next, that is the upper left maxillary incisor, becomes number 9, and this way you go on up to the third molar of the same side, maxillary left side, that is number 16. Then you come down to the mandibular third molar on the left side, will be number 17, and you move along the arch, and you move along the arch to the last, that is the third molar in the mandibular quadrant, that is the third mandibular molar, will be number 32. So basically each tooth has a specific number, and you just have to start from the upper right maxillary third molar, move around the arch on the left side, then come down to the mandibular arch on the left side, move around the arch, and come back to the mandibular right third molar. This is how you move, and you label the tooth accordingly. When you in the universal, this is for the permanent dentition. The same thing applies for the deciduous dentition. Only thing is, here, as you know, you have the deciduous teeth. The primary dentition has 20 teeth. Here, the teeth are not, you use alphabets to specify the particular tooth. So instead of numbers, which you are using in permanent dentition, you are using alphabets. So moving on to the next notation, that is the Zsigmondy-Palmer notation. Again here, for deciduous tooth, again the teeth are numbered according to the by using alphabets. But here the each tooth has a specific alphabet. That is, if you say incisor, it will always, central incisor, it will always be notified by the alphabet A. So it can be the upper left, upper right, lower right incisor. Any of the tooth will be labeled as A. Only you have to use the notation and place the particular tooth in that particular quadrant. Similarly, lateral incisor will be noted by the alphabet B. The canine by, I'm very sorry, no canines in the dentition. And the first premolar by the alphabet C, second premolar by the alphabet D. Oh shit, I'm very sorry. We have the central incisor, lateral incisor, canine, the first molar and the second deciduous molars. So this is how you name them, by the alphabets. And if you come to the permanent teeth, again the same system follows here. Only thing is, you start with the maxillary central incisor. You start, that will be number 1, and you move along the arch up to the third molar, that will be up to number 8. So this follows for all the quadrants. And when you specify, so all central incisors will be 1, all lateral incisors will be 2, canines 3, first premolar 4, second premolar 5, the first molar 6, second molar 7, and third molars will be 8. Only thing is, you have to use the notation. That is, you have to use the symbol and place the tooth in the particular quadrant. The most commonly used is the FDI system, or the Federation Dentire International System. Here, each arch has a specific number. Each quadrant has a specific number. So if you are in the upper right quadrant, will be number 1. The upper left quadrant will be number 2. The lower left quadrant will be number 3. And the lower right quadrant will be number 4. So it is a 2-digit notation. So the first digit will indicate the number of the quadrant, and the second digit will indicate the number of the tooth. Okay. So this way, if you mention a tooth 1 1, means you are implying it is the maxillary right central incisor. So number 1 stands for the upper right quadrant, and 1 again stands for the central incisor. So if you say, similarly, if you say 2-6, meaning you are implying the second quadrant first molar. Okay. So now this system um, is used more commonly nowadays, and the reason behind this is it is easy to use, it is easy to write, you can it is easy to understand. So because of this, the FDI system or the tooth numbering system, which is commonly the practice which is commonly followed nowadays, is the FDI notation, which is used for teeth numbering. So for the this is for the permanent dentition. Now for the it is for the deciduous dentition. Again, you have the numbers, number of the quadrant, that is 5 for the upper right quadrant, 6 for the upper left quadrant, 7 for the lower left quadrant, and 8 for the lower right quadrant. So now concluding with the topic, the questions which are normally asked are, you may have an SEQ on the tooth numbering systems, or you can have types of KVs. And in the long answer question, you can have the terminology of the tooth preparation. This can come as a long answer question. This can come, but usually this topic is usually covered in the Viva. So in the Viva, most of the questions will be based on this topic. So though it is the basic, it is a very important topic because it will help you in communicating with the people of your profession, or it will help you in communicating with the dentists worldwide. So you have to be thorough with this notation. These are my references. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, hello. Are you there, Samiksha Rameshwari?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
So do you have any doubts regarding this?
No, ma'am.
Yeah.
No, ma'am.
No, okay. This is a very important topic, especially from the point of view of Viva. Okay.
Okay,
So
ma'am.
it is given in your journals also in detail. So make use of your journal. You have the journals with you, or it is in college?
No, ma'am.
You
I'm
don't have.
hostel, ma'am.
College.
So whenever
Don't
you
have.
have time, it is given very nicely in your journals, and you can refer the textbooks also.
Okay.
So it is.
Yes, ma'am.
These are the questions which are asked normally in the Viva. So you have to be thorough with all this notation. Okay.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay. So we end the lecture. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am.